Hello, everybody, and thank you for having me at this Women in Voice Innovation Lab. Due to time zone differences, I wasn't really quite sure whether I could make it in person. So, if you're watching this recording, that probably means that I wasn't able to. But in that case, I hope to meet you sometime coming year at one of the events or conferences that are undoubtedly going to happen again. So, innovation, I thought it might be a nice idea with innovation and so many things happening around us to pay some time and attention to how to keep focus on your own conversational career amid the big kind of changes that are happening every day. And how to do that? Well, you can see part of the answer here already by finding your hyper niche. The most dreaded question, for me at least, in any job interview is where do you see yourself in 5 years? And my answer is always, I don't know. 5 years ago, this was Maaike at Dutch Railways, and I worked as a requirement engineer for complex rail schedule planning software, which was interesting, but it was definitely not conversational. And I don't think I ever saw a chatbot out in the open in the wild by then, let alone a voice bot, because Google Assistant wasn't even there, I think, or just there. So difficult to say in advance. And if I look back at the past 5 years at everything that happened, uh, it's just too much to plan in advance. I left my salary job, started my own business. My first assignment was actually technical writing. I went into conversation design and did a lot of stuff. Was this planned? No. This is what I encountered on the way. Was I prepared? In a sense, yes, because I love learning and somehow I just learned as I went along, I guess. And I think that's probably also necessary because if you look at our world, it changes every day, right? Conversational AI is probably one of the fastest moving industries that I know. Hype cycles galore, new technologies like OpenAI, GPT-3, which kind of, auto generate lots of stuff and new large language models. There's ontologies and knowledge graphs that are really kind of interesting as well. That world is evolving quite fast. There's even AI that generates content. So perhaps we might be out of a job soon as traditional conversation designers. And of course, with Dolly, Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, you can have images generated based on language prompts. This is all very, very overwhelming and very exciting as well. On the other hand, I don't know if you recognize this, but my direct surroundings don't change that fast. We still have managers with too many meetings, even me as a freelancer. We're still trying to make projects work somehow, and of course, waterfall wasn't the solution, but agile doesn't seem to fare much better. Um, Customer support is still a challenge for many companies, and it also seems like sometimes they don't even seem to care. And of course, we're all still stressed. So it can be pretty hard in that context of a very rapidly changing outside world and an inside world that might not change as fast and might actually be holding you back a bit to find out which developments are important for you, what these developments mean for you, your profession, and your actual job, and how to fine tune your own learning journey to cater for not only today, but also your future in 5 years. Because even if you don't know where you are, there's one thing that will be certain: you won't be here anymore. So let's have a close look on how to do that live from my study here in Hilversum in the Netherlands. Um, and when people ask me, because I do get this question quite a lot, like, Micah, what should I learn? Should I learn how to program? If so, which language? Which platform should I know? And I'm like, my answer is, I don't know, because I don't know you. I don't know your background. I don't know your ambitions. I don't know your daily life structure. So in such cases, what I usually advise is begin here with you in the here and now. And I think there might even be some very nice songs about starting at the very beginning because it's such a wonderful place to start. You know where you are, you know what your current situation looks like, and you know what's around this current situation. Another tip that I always give is rather than learning something new from scratch, which is really, I think, a pitfall for many of us, like, oh, yes, I can become a conversation designer if I know everything about linguistics first, and I won't start before. Um, yes, I can be a manager if I first do an MBA, and I won't start before. Why not have a look at what you're already good at what brings your energy, and what brings you joy? Because chances are that if you are learning, these are the things that you're bound to kind of maintain, to sustain, that you're bound to come back to anyway. Good example for me myself is community building. I never saw that as a career choice, but it's something I just did naturally. And only when other people started noticing that I might have a bit of a talent for it, it started dawning on me like, hey, but I already know how to do this. Um, with all like the constraints and the constructs, like, yeah, but if I know it already, it's really easy and everybody can do it, right? That's a pitfall to avoid. Work in your comfort zone rather than stepping out of it each time. And then, of course, discover your learning goals because focus comes with setting a goal. Might be a short term one, a long term one, but if you can have something in sight at the end of the line, that gives you a goal to aim at. And then combine these three into what I call your hyper niche. I just like the word. I mean, everything is hyper today, so why not have a hyper niche? Did I define what a hyper niche is? Yes, absolutely. I think I see a hyper niche as a combination of knowledge, skills, and joy that you keep developing so that you can conquer your own unique nook in today's job market. So rather than knowing everything about everything, like our FOMO, just specialize on something that is on the crossroads of your own knowledge, your own skills, and your own joy and energy. And people will just notice if you're working there because you'll have a certain glow in your eyes. You'll probably be smiling a lot more, and you'll bring an energy to the table that people just love. Probably a familiar picture over there. It's Ikigai. It's the crossroads of what you love doing, what you're good at, what the world needs, and probably the most challenging part, what you can be paid for. What I'm going to show you now, it's all based on my own experience. So there's no scientific validation for it, and the guarantees are like until the end of this little meeting, right? But when I'm kind of interested in something, I have a very structured approach on how I go about learning about that something. And that's something I'd like to share with you. So we start at the very beginning, here and now, and you. And what I usually ask myself and my coaches, who I use this model with, is okay, what's your favorite way of gathering knowledge? I'm a reader, so reading is definitely my preferred mode. Other people like guided training and online courses. Other people yet like to practice, so they dive into a new platform straight away. Don't read anything, like don't read the manual or the online help. Just they get their data set and try to make it work. That's also a very large group. Some people like to listen, so podcasts and ebooks might be their thing, videos as well. Um, this is not exhaustive, right? If you have other preferred modes, you can just enter them here. These are just examples. So, first, define your knowledge mode. Then, have a look at the role from which you want to learn something. Is it from a do and execute point of view? Like, do you really want to know how do I do this in my current job, for instance? Is it more about a think and analysis role? Like, how do I tackle a use case that might be more complex? And how do I prepare it in such a way that other people can actually do it? Or how do I build an intent architecture that's suitable for more complex use cases? Yet another role might be to organize or manage something like how do I organize a conversational team? How do I manage the content and intent management of an enterprise level conversational interface? And the final role, and again, there might be more here, but the final role that I always look at is how do I learn something so that I can coach others on it? or share it with other people. Because the best way of learning is, of course, teaching others, because that really makes you sit down and think, how do I transfer this information, this knowledge to other people? Then there's the skill and topic list. And again, this is just an example of what my skill and topic list look like. And I can imagine that for most conversation designers, this might sound quite familiar, because we all, of course, want to learn about good copywriting, good conversational copy, how to make stuff conversational, about flow and architecture, which is more of the logic of your bot. For me personally, content management, well, that's my background. So it's something I always want to kind of take with me when I do conversational interfaces, and transfer some of my knowledge there. Psychology and UX, of course, because we are building human machine interfaces. So some knowledge about how humans work in information processing and retrieval, in their emotional state and their journeys, is also really useful. And of course, if you're a linguist like me, then NLU and language technology are definitely something that you want to keep learning about. And finally, I have three perspectives. From which perspective do I want to learn? Do I want to learn from a machine perspective? So, how do I do something in a certain platform? Or how do I build an API to a certain interface? Do I want to have a look at the process and method and way of working perspective? How do I create a process for intent management that works really well for a team of multiple people that might work remotely? How do I design a way of working that fits neatly in an IT Scrum environment? So that's very much about standard operating procedures, perhaps little kind of definitions of done, stuff like that. And finally, the human perspective. How do I bring my team up to speed? How do I coach someone who is just beginning in conversation design? How do I design a career path for a more senior person? What kind of information do people need when they process information? So this human can be anybody, right? It can be our customers, but it can also be us or our teammates. Now, if you combine these four steps, basically what you get are learning goals. And here are some examples. As a conversation designer, I would like to read about how to organize and manage flows and architecture from a process point of view. In that case, you could go to my online library, because I have lots of books about process management and content management. Or as a conversation designer, I'd like to practice thinking and analyzing, thinking about and analyzing NLU and language tech from a machine perspective. And this might probably be something like, okay, I've got a working bot already, but I want to try another platform. Is it doing it better there or worse? So there you can build a model on Watson or MS Lewis. So that's basically not a lot of theory, not a lot of courses. You just take what you have and try to make it work in another technological environment. Or as a conversation designer, I'd like to take a course, how to do and execute psychology and UX from a human perspective. So imagine you'd like to know a bit more about designing for the elderly, or people with a visual impairment, or design about a certain customer segment in your organization. And then you can, of course, go and look for a good UX research course. So these four steps are meant as little pointers to make you kind of think structurally about your conversational career. Finally, it always helps if you give your learning goals a context. So, your own context: what does my organization look like? What do they need at the moment? Trends and developments around you. What's the current global market doing? What about your own local market? For instance, for me, large language models are definitely a thing globally, but until recently, they weren't that much of a thing for the Dutch market, because most of the innovation was in the English speaking world. That has changed, fortunately. And also, of course, the context of your own professional specialization, if you already have one. If you are already working in voice or chat, what are the specific trends over there? If you're working in text based conversational AI, what's going on over there? And you can basically map these in your own personal SWOT analysis: strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. And here's an example of my own. I've mapped my own strengths where like the internal environment in this case is me. Um, I'm very good at analysis and optimization of processes and stuff, Dutch NLU, NLP. I have a large network. I'm a thought leader. Apparently, some people seem to think so. My weaknesses are I'm a company of one, so I can't spread myself too thinly. Um, I work on a very operational level and these assignments cost a lot of time. And I would love to be involved in innovation a bit more, which is quite hard at the moment. So from that, I can define opportunities and threats. To look at the threats, well, I believe that traditional conversation design will eventually end. No worries, there will be other paths, other roads, other journeys. So I have to kind of be prepared for the next step. For me, doing business with the States is notoriously difficult, but I'm getting there. And I'm a freelancer, but more and more organizations hire permanent people. So where do I go next? My opportunities are definitely in broadening my scope to outside the Netherlands, to focus more on coaching and community building, and to perhaps position myself on a more strategic or innovation level. And just by thinking about it in this kind of organized way, it gives me ideas of, okay, that means this and this and this for my learning goals. So I can imagine, like, yeah, this is all really nice, Mike, but where do I get the time to do all this? Well, same holds for me because even though I'm obsessed with conversational, I still have a life, right? I've got a husband, I've got my cats, I need to get my exercise. I love walking and holidays, and I also love like chasing my favorite band, U2. And my answer, I know it's an open door, but focus, focus, focus. Don't fall into the FOMO trap. Don't try to learn everything about everything. Take one learning goal at a time, small steps, but work on it consistently, which means schedule time in your planner to create your own personal learning plan. And for me, I learn in a most optimal way when I work on something like 3 days a week. And I actually write it down in my paper planner. So, speaking of time, I think I might be well over the limit already. And that's wonderful because this was my last slide. If you'd like to continue this topic and talking about it, you're more than welcome to join Convo Club, which is my online community for conversation designers, where we discuss this kind of stuff, where I also coach people, and where you can basically find a lot of people, like-minded people like you and me and all the other women in voice, of course. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and talk soon. Groetjes.